And now we're here for why Ms. Michael is here, and Ms. Kopic, the poor that we buried the lead. It's just a budget. Here we are with the budget. 10.01 FY24 budget questions and answers. And can I go straight to Ms. Michael? All right, straight to you, Ms. Michael.
So thank you so much to the school board for all of your budget questions. This evening we posted the most recent set of questions for you that begin with question number 17 on position reductions. In the past, we've kind of walked through each of the questions and answers at these meetings. I'm happy to do that this evening, or in the interest of time, I would be happy to jump to just taking any questions from the school board on the responses to questions 17 through 24.
Sorry. Yes, Dr. Anderson.
So on question 18, the collective bargaining, thank you for providing the information. I was just wondering, do you have any idea kind of what I know we have like this certain amount set aside for the collective bargaining. Do you have any idea about how much would actually be expended through the negotiation process? Obviously, it depends on the timing and whatnot, but.
Yes,
yeah.
And I don't have any estimate in terms of how much we're spending. I think in part as we work through collective bargaining and looking at it, we could experience costs in a number of different places. So right now, as we're looking at developing our collective bargaining resolution, right, our expenditures that we're incurring are paying the staff that are participating on the committee for their time there, which we'll do at the end, and then any external legal advice that we seek. Once that agreement is in place, though, we will have additional expenditures that, depending on how that resolution is drafted, we could potentially be paying half of. So, for example, half of the cost of an election, half of a cost of anyone we bring in terms of any impasse or resolving conflicts. And then, of course, during any of that process, if we wanted to hire any additional external legal support, we could have additional costs there. I thought one thing that might help kind of a little bit quantify that information is on page 2 of this budget question. I guess it actually starts on the bottom of that question. Falls Church City Public Schools participates in the Washington Area Boards of Education Guide, and that group is a group that gets together and puts together comparable data each fall in that document. But that group is a great resource in terms of asking them information. So we had reached out to them about a week or so ago and asked all of the jurisdictions what they were budgeting to spend either in dollars or positions for collective bargaining, either in the current year budget or the next year budget. And all of those responses are listed here. So you can see many divisions have added additional staffing to help them manage collective bargaining or have set aside other funds to do so. So I know all of the districts kind of vary in size, but I would say at present, until we have that collective bargaining resolution done, I think it's difficult to estimate how much we're going to spend.
Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Michael. I will say one thing that we talked with during the committee discussions is staggering these agreements so that Ms. Minson and whoever else is involved isn't having to do all of this with 2 different bargaining units at once. So we are trying to be smart about it, but I think I've also made very clear that, we don't want, this is not Ms. Minson's job, is solely collective bargaining. So, whether, a future board, this board may have to dedicate a lot of money towards collective bargaining for either more staff to handle the workload or to hire outside counsel, because again, I look to Ms. Minson, but also Ms. Michael and Ms. Hall. This is not their sole job, obviously. And so I think Dr. Noonan and I were reading, and Dr. Dimmick and I were reading an article about, the staff can't even give up really 25%. They're working so hard. So I just think this board and a future board may need to be prepared that there's going to be significant dollars going to support our staff. So Any other questions? Okay, go ahead, Ms. Michael. Was there any, we were at, I'm sorry, you said questions. I actually had a question we were at number 21. I had a question. Were we up to number 21?
I'm happy to walk through them each individually if that's helpful.
Sure.
Okay, so FY17, that budget question was related to grant funding from Don Beyer to the general government. So they responded talking about how that funding is for additional projects and doesn't free up any other revenue available. We had just talked a little bit about question number 18 regarding collective bargaining. And then question 19 was related to the compensation study and that placeholder that we have available. Any questions on the compensation study? Okay, question 20 was also related to the compensation study in terms of assistant principals. Question 21 had to do with the number of students that were projected to enroll in Falls Church City Public Schools as a result of the Founders Row project. And the general government provided us the percentage of those units that's currently leased and what their projected range was. And our current enrollment is in the middle of that range.
I have a question about that, Ms. Michael.
Okay.
So, so my understanding when I was looking at the budget book is we currently have 48 students, right, from Founders Row, and the estimate was 43 to 65, but there's still 52 units vacant.
That is correct. They've leased 84% of their properties.
Okay.
So we're currently within that range, a little bit closer to the lower end, but they do still have 16% of those multifamily units yet to rent.
Okay. So if you could just, not that you don't have anything else to do, but keep us apprised of that number.
Sure.
Because I think that's just, and I know we have Ms. Connolly in the audience too, and we're partners with the general government, but I think it's just a good test case to see how our projections are going with all the new development coming online.
Agreed, and potentially we can wait a little bit later in the spring or early in the summer and ask if they can give us an update in terms of the percent leased, and then we can also pull enrollment from there and provide it to the board.
Great. Thank you so much, Ms. Michael.
Question 22 was related to cost for bridging the gap for students in terms of their SOL scores. Question 23 was regarding the funding for the sustainability and instructional materials at the secondary level. And then the last question is related to what we just talked about, number 24, which is the demographer, and our partnership with the general government to get some demographer service. And this was really related to the fact that our current enrollment projections done by Weldon Cooper don't in any way take new developments into account.
Though it's tangentially related to the question, do we have any idea when we might do that? Like partner on the demographer or?
Let me speak to the city manager and get back to you.
Okay. Is that it? That was our last one?
That's the last question.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions or follow-ups to the budget questions? Great. Well, thank you, Ms. Michael and Ms. Kopic, as always. Thank you for those great, informative answers to, you're really helping educate us on the budget. So it's just, these budget question and answers are so valuable for us. Thank you so much for the work you put into those. And we're at 10.02 FY24 state budget update. I'm assuming, Ms. Michael, you'll take that on as well?
Yes, thank you so much for the opportunity again to talk a little bit about the state budget. So the state budget is currently in process. So we just wanted to give an update of the current proposals that were coming out of the House and Senate. So the House and Senate are pretty far apart. As was sorted in the news this week, they have a large budget gap between their full proposals that include more than K-12 education. But we wanted to talk just a little bit about what their differences are. So this chart shows the governor's proposed budget, which is what we use to develop our budget for FY24. And then we've shown you what is the House proposal and then what is the Senate proposal. And you can see even for just Falls Church City Public Schools, there's a big difference. The House budget as compared to the governor's was actually a decrease of $41,147 versus the Senate proposal would actually increase our state funding by $654. So what is the difference kind of in those two proposals? Well, the first thing I wanted to point out is both the House and Senate increased the compensation supplement for school divisions, but it would require an increase for the average employee to be 7% as compared to 5% in the governor's proposal. So again, that funding is contingent upon us meeting that requirement. Now, they obviously fund only a small portion of the funding that it costs us to give those salary increases because that funding goes through our local composite index and is based on linear weighted averages in terms of salaries. But that does attribute to some of that additional funding. When we look at those proposal, the Senate increase, obviously, their budget overall is more favorable to us, but their proposed language was also more favorable because their proposal said funding that was provided to employees as part of the average salary increase in this current year that was above the 5% that was required by the state may count towards meeting that 7% to next year. So we'll very closely watch the House and the Senate as they continue their negotiations on this budget and what happens in terms of that employee compensation funding. Many people heard in the news that there was an error in the calculation done by the Virginia Department of Education in terms of state aid. Falls Church City Public Schools and all of the other school divisions in the state rely on the calculation tools that VDOE, the Virginia Department of Education, provides us. And they had an error in that tool. That error resulted from sales tax. When they reduced or eliminated the sales tax on groceries, they put a hold harmless payment in for school divisions. And that hold harmless payment wasn't part of the sales tax calculation. And there's this thing called the basic aid offset that says when your sales tax goes up, your basic aid goes down. Or in this case, when the sales tax went down because of that grocery tax, basic aid went up. When the state is saying it shouldn't have went up because the hold harmless should have been counted as part of sales tax. So both the House and the Senate versions do offset that loss, but they use a different methodology. Again, the Senate version looks more favorable to us. And then the last significant difference is the Senate version removes the support cap, and that would provide additional revenue to us of over $200,000. The support cap began in 2010. We have an upcoming budget question regarding this. But what it does is it arbitrarily caps the funding that the state provides for support positions. And support positions include more than what we just generally think of as support. So, for example, assistant superintendents, instructional personnel fall in that category. That's been one of our legislative positions, so we continue to watch that as well. And then the last bullet on the slide is that the state has a $1,000 bonus and their proposal as well. Should that come through, depending on what we would determine to do for our employees, there could be additional funding of $300,000 needed if we were to give that to all employees. So again, we're going to want to watch all of these state components closely, but the Senate and the House do still have a big gap that they'll need to resolve prior to getting the budget adopted. So this is just the state budget schedule, just to remind people. The state is scheduled to come to an end of their session on February 25th, and we are super hopeful that they will do that. Then following that, we'll receive, again, those calculation tools from the Virginia Department of Education in the week or two after that. So this is the schedule for the state budget. And just as one other note, we're super excited. The daycare bill that we were working on with just tremendous support from Delegate Simon has passed the House, and it was in the Senate, but was already reported out from the Senate Education and Health Committee. So that is looking really positive, and we are super hopeful about that as we work on the state budget. And then just the budget calendar was provided as a reminder for people who may be watching. So thank you for the opportunity to give you an update on the state budget.
Thank you, Ms. Michael. Any questions? Nope. Yes, Ms. Silverman.
So at the next meeting, we're voting on the budget next meeting? Is that at the next work session?
Yes, the school board will adopt the advertised budget on February 28th.
Okay. Thank you.
And then, so that's that becomes an R budget, but then once city council, we come back then and to vote on, was it in May, Dr. Noonan? Yeah. So, and sometimes there are adjustments made, right, during that time?
Yeah, at the May adjustment, at the May adoption, following the city council meeting, which is the very next night, there may be some slight modifications that you need to make just to sort of true things up. But the big night is coming up next meeting, because then it becomes the school board's budget, no longer is the superintendent's proposed budget.
Yes, Ms. Silverman.
I do, are we having a work session next time on advanced academics?
Yes.
Okay. I'll talk to you offline maybe. Just, it might be, I would personally like to have that work session before a vote on the budget.
Okay. We'll talk offline and about the timing.
Okay, thank you.